Thanks. Okay, so before we jump into introductions, we want to hear a little bit about who our audience is tonight. So, just by show of hands, raise your hand if you're in sales management. Okay, switch if you are someone who's a seller yourself, account executive, seller. Okay, all right, good spread there. Raise your hand if you've sold deals that are over 100K. Okay. So if you came here tonight thinking about professional development, go ahead, keep your hands up. Look around. These are folks to reach out to and network with, right? Because they've worked on the bigger deals that you're probably thinking about going on market. Okay, one more question for you. Who's spent over 2 years selling deals that are over 100K? Okay, and so as people go up market, you see a lot of folks will change roles, they'll grow into other things, they'll do other stuff. These are the folks who've done it year after year after year. Right? So if you said to yourself, I'm going to go to this thing because I want to meet people, I want to network, I want to talk to somebody who's done it, I want to ask somebody like, oh shit, what do I do in this case? Go find somebody, and especially if somebody can speak to your industry and selling large deals in your industry, please reach out, connect to these folks. All right, raise your hand if you've sold to a public company. Okay, again, folks, look around. This is a different sale, right? If you're selling into public companies, there's a different procurement process. There are different regulations sometimes. These are folks to know as well as meet these folks. Let's talk about industry for a minute. Raise your hand if you're in ad tech. Anybody in advertising, ad tech, marketing tech, selling into a marketer? All right, who here is doing like a big data startup? Okay, we got a couple of folks there. Raise your hand if you sell a sales tool. That's what I thought. That's it was true. How about anybody in hardware? Hardware, okay. All right, so you see we got one person selling real stuff. Real things. All right, go figure out if you've got space for his product on your shelf. Just be nice. All right, so we're going to start with a quick intro. Can you guys start with giving us a little bit of your background, both where your sales career started, as well as what you're doing now, and kind of how you came to be in this spot? We'll start with Bridget.
Thank you, Jay Ryan. Is it on?
Yeah.
So I'm Bridget Gleason. I'm currently an executive advisor at Sumo Logic, which is a big data company. And in the day, if you were going into sales, you started at a company. I started at Xerox, which had one of the best sales training programs just in the country. And we would go for, before I could talk to a customer, I had to have 6 months in the office, learning from other reps, at least 2 weeks of training, go through a certification. I mean, it was very rigorous to be able to even talk to a customer. And everything was enterprise sales. You started out right out of school going into enterprise sales. So that's where I started. So I was at Xerox and continued in tech, various companies. I actually started a company late 1990s, which is sold in early 2000. Did some consulting and then went back in and did some other VPs of sales roles. So been primarily in technology, but not exclusively, and have sold a lot, both SaaS as well as B2B and enterprise.
Question, how many people here have heard of the training program Selling to Vito? Please, somebody raise your hand. Really? Was it on your list? Well, I mean, oh, you did? I think you were going to sit up here.
You didn't know.
Because, and Bridget, where did it start?
Thank you very much. My alma mater, Xerox. Thank you. Spin selling. What about spin selling? Did anybody hear about that?
The impetus
all
of
right,
all the training programs
we've
that
got
you
a
guys
few more. They all, that's like,
it all started there.
I know, it's like ground zero.
Totally was.
Totally ground zero.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, that's it. I think you did a good job.
Hi everyone, I'm Fallon Fadme. I'm the CEO and founder of Node.io. We're the first account-based intelligence platform where we help sales and marketing understand their total addressable market, so the world of people and companies that you should sell and market to for the next 5 years. And we give you the tools to execute on that market in a very effective way at scale. So not only giving you more revenue faster, but better revenue, higher deal sizes, higher win rates, and shorter sales cycle times. Everything we want. And my background, I was the youngest employee at Google, started working there when I was 19 years old, was there for 6 years. I've spent over a decade focused on global expansion and building strategic partnerships, both at Google, YouTube, as well as in the startup world. Got together 2 years ago with a number of ex-Google Search Facebook data engineers and started Node. And so I'll give you my lens on the sales and marketing world, because we talk to a lot of customers and we see what's going on the enterprise side, and we do six-figure deals.
Top that, Doug.
Wow.
What did you do at 19?
Nice. Yeah, 19. Yeah, we don't want to go there. It's a totally different story. What's up, everybody? My name is Doug Landis. I'm the Chief Storyteller at Box. Yes, that is my title. I created that myself. Yes, I did. Aaron said okay. Background, my selling career started in the early days when I had my very first paper route. Anybody here actually remember have a paper route? Okay, cool. Now I'm dating myself. Cool. This is great. That's really where it started. Started selling newspapers in the very early days. But right out of college, my first sales career was working for a little company called Black & Decker. We launched a brand new division, or accessories division. I had Canada to Mexico, throughout the Rockies. They gave me a company car and a bunch of supplies and said, go sell. I was literally selling hardware store to hardware store to hardware store, trying to drive sell-through on the big distributors. It was intense. And after that, I grew up in Palo Alto, so I'm a Bay Area kid. And after about 3 years being in that industry, I realized that I missed home and I wanted to get back into technology. So I went to go work at Oracle, the machine, and that's where everything started to fall apart. And actually, interestingly enough, so in this new role that I'm in, I'm now actually a part of marketing. So for the first time in 20 years, I sit on the marketing side of the house, and it's crazy interesting for all of us sellers to actually, kind of spend some time on the other side of the fence and see what they see and to see how they think about the world. And are there any marketers in here? Okay, cool. Everybody that's in marketing has to go sell for at least a year, if not 5, just to get an understanding that fundamentally, like, who our customers are. Our customers are our salespeople, and it's our customers. It's just interesting how a lot of people kind of forget about that. Anyway, that's me.
Great. I think that should be the next panel, is focused on like how marketers think about sales. So that's really fascinating. But my background, my name is Ryan Williams. I'm the VP of Sales at Lead Genius. In my spare time, I do stuff like this because when I moved out to the Bay Area in 2008, started a sales career. There wasn't a lot of things like this. There wasn't a lot of sales training, people getting together and doing it themselves. And so from the folks that I had talked to and learned from, events like this got really interesting to me. So that's why I want to be here, give back, hang out for a little bit. Doug mentioned a book called Selling DeVito, where you think about how you get in touch with the very important top officer. I worked for somebody who made me read it. I got maybe a chapter into it, and I was like, I don't know about this. It's basically sending letters and inter-office mail to corporate executives to get them to respond to you.
We call that sneaker net.
So the question that I want to start with is, what has replaced that as a way to get the CEO's attention, or is inter-office mail still the best way to get Bill Gates to call you back?
That's interesting.
What are people doing these days that's working and that getting a hold of that CEO?
I think the best way in continues to be your network and being referred in. It is so hard to get this is about like getting to the C-suite. It's hard to get those people's attention. And it's, unless you've got something compelling that you can say, it can be a letter, it can be an email, it's still going to be hard. But if you have someone who can refer you in and your network is strong, and it's why also for everybody in the room, the most important thing you have is your reputation. And you never trade down with that as your currency, because that's what's going to get you in the door, and it's also going to lock doors. So your reputation is really important. It can open doors, and that's what you can also leverage when you're trying to get into those getting to see those people.
I'd also say it depends. It depends on the industry that you're targeting, and it depends on how big the company is. And how many people here are actually C's, have a C in their title? Matthew, okay. So what would it take to get in touch with Matthew Bellows, the CEO and founder of Yesware, versus an Aaron Levy versus a Mark Benioff, who, by the way, right now, Mark won't actually take any meetings unless you're a CEO. Like of course he'll engage with you as a CIO of Cisco, Symantec, whatever, but I mean, it kind of depends on the company that you're calling into. Selling DeVito was really all about how do you sell to the Fortune 1000, so to speak, and that is different. And without question, it's through connections and relationships, because they don't have time. And so I trust you. I know you. If there's somebody that you need me to meet with, okay, maybe I'll spend some time, because I believe in what you're telling me.
I mean, I'd also say, like to echo both of these guys, 80% of B2B deals happen through relationships being a major factor. And so, a lot of these C-level executives, they don't even manage their own email. I think actually Mark Benioff does. So you have to be really creative about how you're going to get their attention. Going to events, meeting them, especially where they're speaking, like that's where you can literally walk up to them, give them a quick elevator pitch, and get their attention and get a meeting. So you have to be really creative about how you do enter. Going through the board, going through investors in that company, like people that CEO will pay attention to. You got to think strategically about who has influence over those people and who they're going to listen to, and really who their gatekeepers are. That identification is key.
The social media work? Are we hearing people tweeting at CEOs and getting responses and relationships that way?
Again, a lot of these C-levels, they may or may not manage their own handles. Content does. They read. So putting out strong thought leadership, for us, I have a column in Forbes, so I get to leverage that as a platform to not talk about our product necessarily, but to talk about industry trends, the future of marketing and sales, because we're selling to marketing and sales. Talk about what are unique, interviewing people that are doing things in a forward-thinking way, so we attract the types of people that we want to come and express interest as well. And that's helped a lot in just bringing people in. And even if the C-levels aren't necessarily reaching out directly, they're having their VPs reach out to us. So that works.
Again, it also depends on if they're on social media. How many Fortune 1000 CEOs actually are on LinkedIn? It's an interesting question. Can you LinkedIn request many Fortune 1000 CEOs? No, not really, yeah. But maybe you can tweet them, but that's also depends on if they're active on Twitter, right? So where are you going to find them?
So in the executive positions that you guys are in, how do you respond when reps ask you to use your network to open a door for them? What's the best way, if I'm selling on one of your teams, Bridget, what's the best way for me to get you to make an intro, because you've got a great network? And if I was trying to go do business with Matthew, I'd see you're connected with him on LinkedIn. Like, how would I get you to make that introduction?
So my reps would ask me that all the time. In fact, I would encourage them to look at my LinkedIn network and identify people who you want to talk to. And then it also depends. They have to have done their homework. And it has to be something that's compelling. It has to make sense. They have to have identified the right person. I won't just do it randomly or without thought. Because again, that's my connection.
And it's also your reputation.
And my reputation, but I'm not just going to be sending anybody to Matthew. It's got to be somebody it's vetted and it's going to make sense and it's going to be worth his or her time. So my request always to reps on my team that do want to leverage somebody in my network is they've got to have done their homework. And I don't always say yes. Sometimes I say it's not a strong enough connection, or I don't know them well enough, or I don't think that you've done enough, that's not the right person. So it really depends.
There's an interesting thing. It's the person that you're asking, you also need to think as much about as the person who you want to get in touch with. So, meaning like if I'm asking Bridget to connect me to Matthew, what am I doing that's going to make Bridget look good? right? So I need to think about her as much as I'm thinking about him. So
Do you think we should just bring Matthew to the front since we keep
yeah,
referring to him?
No, but the thing is, like,
Teacher's desk over there.
yeah, but like, think about it. The people that you're asking, it makes a ton of sense. We just said this, right? It's your connection, it's your networks that allow you to get in front of the right people. But the people that you're asking, don't just use them as a vehicle to get to somebody else. How can you actually help them? You know, what can you give back to them because they're giving of their connection and of their time. Now, if you work in the same company, it's to be expected, right? That's what all of you guys should do: is use your board, use your investors, use your advisors, connect with those people, and ask for those introductions. But also just be really thoughtful about every single one of them, because you don't have too many asks. She can't keep going back to the same person and saying, "Hey, oh wait, I've got something else I want you to check out," because she's putting her reputation on the line. Right, and now if I make a connection to Aaron Levy, for example, you want to talk to Aaron, and it's a good one, and it makes me look good, cool. Guess what? You've just earned some money in the bank account, right? Maybe I'll make another connection for you because I kind of believe in you and I believe in what your requests are. So just be really thoughtful about the people that you're asking, not just the end result.
Doug, if I'm a new SDR at Box, like let's say I start next week. How do I get Aaron's attention to make an intro from his network? How would I get Aaron to maybe introduce me to Benioff? Because I'm sure he could make that call.
Yeah, well, there's two things. One, there's a process to actually do that. So we built inside of Salesforce an executive request mechanism. So you basically log a request. It has to be associated with an opportunity. There has to be background details. Based on when Aaron gets that request, he hits a button. He sees a debrief as to what that account situation is all about, the background of the opportunity. And then, so now he's got some insights. So it gives him kind of fodder to actually reach out. It's also super helpful if the SDR actually crafts kind of some background details of like, hey, here's why now, here's why I want you to reach out to him. And honestly, if an SDR is asking Aaron to reach out to Mark as an example, it's also the AE is going to be involved in that conversation, right? So the AE will have some color to add to that. But we built a whole process in, and then of course there has to be a good reason. Can't just be I want to meet them. I want to get a meeting. That's not valuable.
Yeah. And what are you seeing from the other types of data points that are interesting for that to happen? I'm sure you guys look at a lot of data in those relationships and things about that company that's being, it sounds like this would be a company that's already on an account list. What are you seeing in terms of what folks want to know about an account before they make that executive request or a request to the C-suite?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's about ensuring that you're focusing on the right points of entry into that organization. So just because your team member or your boss has a connection doesn't mean that that's the best entry point into the organization. You have to actually research it and understand the context behind that connection. If you worked with someone, obviously, that you're trying to, sell to, and this example here with Yesware, that's a pretty strong connection, and that might be a really great, entry point. But again, you do have to make the case around why does Yesware need the solution that we're selling? How am I going to pitch this to her relationship? Because again, there's social capital here that is being spent, and you have to respect that. Because if she doesn't make a good introduction, then she's not going to be able to leverage that relationship in the future. So there's a risk for her too.
Yeah, cool. So one question I had was, after you've made that first executive touch, whether it's the CEO, COO, someone in the C-suite, how do you not annoy the CEO, but keep that relationship relevant and keep the conversation on point? At the same time, I gotta imagine that the subordinates who might be working that buying process or project manager for the CEO would want to be involved. So how do you not cut them out and yet stay relevant enough the CEO still wants to know what the deal is? Does that make sense?
I think more often the CEO is going to want to be cut out.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going to want, they don't need to know all the details. And I think that's...
Do you want them cut out as a seller?
I don't mind if they're cut out.
Okay.
Because I have to, it goes back to also respecting their time. And I just think about, let's say buying decisions that I would need for my team. There's a lot of details. Not only do I not need them, I don't want to be involved in them. And so all it's going to do is annoy me if somebody's feeding me this information that really I trust the people who work for me to make these decisions. And they'll bring it up to me when it's relevant for me to see it. So I put myself in that same situation. Let's keep the CEO, whoever, aware, but then go work with the people who they have given the authority to go make the decision, and keep them aware as needed. But they don't typically want all the details, and the CEO's not going to feel slighted, or that they're not being kept apprised of all the details. So I think I would be respectful of the C-suite's time and how much you're informing them, and also what your ask is from them.
The one thing I would add to that is, if you want to stay in touch with them, say you've got some outreach and they engage and they push you off to somebody else, which 9 times out of 10 happens, right? Because they've got assigned somebody to actually look into it. There's nothing wrong with reaching out if you've got something viable that you think would be helpful for them, right? It's this whole notion of insight selling, whatever you want to call it, whatever model it is. But the reality is they don't have time. They're only going to read things that are interesting. And if it's interesting to their peers, the people that they follow, the other C-suite executives that they're actually on boards with or that they engage with often enough, if there's a connection there, then share it with them. Just with no connection or with no attachment, I guess, to the outcome. I'm just sharing this with you because this was interesting to your peer set. Didn't know if you were aware of it. Off you go. There's value in that.
Yeah, one more thing I would also add to it. You don't want to train a CEO, or actually anyone, to ignore your emails or calls. And if you send them a bunch of stuff they don't need, all you're doing is training them. Okay, it's from Bridget.
If I got them in a sequence.
What's that? Yeah, so you got to be careful around that too.
After you've had this meeting, how do you translate whatever that initial meeting is with the C-suite or a C-level exec? How do you translate that into immediate action? Maybe they didn't bring that project manager and you've got to ask for it, or maybe it's not a priority for them right now and you've got to shorten the sales cycle. What are the ways you've seen people be able to trigger action from that initial meeting, or maybe they took the meeting just because they're being polite to their friend that did the intro?
Well, I'm a big believer in your meetings. You got to be very clear about what are we leaving this meeting. So part of it's how you run the meeting, right? So we're super clear about what are we going to walk away, what action items are we going to walk away with at the end of this meeting. What am I going to hold myself accountable to, and what are you going to hold yourself accountable to? Because look, I don't want to waste your time or mine, for that matter. I don't want to sit here and chase you down. Spend the next 6 months trying to determine whether or not this was legit. Right? So in the meeting itself, you need to clearly identify expectations and accountability on both sides. As salespeople, we have a tendency of being yes people. Like, oh, send me some information, or like, oh, let's set up some time, let's have another conversation. Okay, cool, let's do that. But what's going to happen? What are you going to do? What's going to happen next? And if you run a good meeting, you're allowed to actually ask for that.
You're allowed to ask for the next steps.
You're allowed to ask for some accountability on their end. And their accountability maybe, hey, I need you to talk to these people on my team. And if they didn't give you that information, then you're allowed to ask for that, because that's what you guys both agreed to in the meeting.
Every meeting you have with another organization in a sales capacity should have a clear objective. And you should have a clear agenda, and lay it on the table, make sure that the other side is also, everyone agrees that we're all on the same page about what we're going to achieve in this meeting, and at the end, we do a quick summary, make sure we understand both sides, action items, next steps, and we follow up with an email. And you set timelines around it. I mean, every meeting has an objective, so you got to complete that loop.
Well, the more you show that level of professionalism, especially to a C-suite, now all of a sudden they start to see you more and more as less of a salesperson, but more of as you're a peer. Like you're operating in a professional manner, and that's what they're used to amongst their peers.
Yeah, and I would say, just to echo what Fallon and Doug have been saying, that you have the clear agenda, but it starts actually even before that, that you've got an account plan mapped out. So you know at this meeting, there are a couple ways this could go. And I'm going to have a couple of clear asks that I have here. A rep should never go into a meeting thinking, God, I wonder what's going to happen, or I wonder what we should do, I wonder what next step should be. You got to be really clear, because you know what? You're driving the meeting. You're in charge. And a great sales rep is a great project manager. And that's what you're doing. You're project managing this deal. And you can offer a great service to a C-level exec by being a great project manager. Because you know what, you've done this before. And you know how to navigate through organizations. They may not. You're going to go, especially in a big organization, you're going to talk, you may know better how to navigate than they do. Because you know, okay, here's what I've seen. We're going to need to talk to legal, we need to talk to finance, I think we should do legal first. And you map it out. Be a resource for them by being that person that helps them navigate. But you got to have that figured out beforehand, that you should never wonder, I wonder how we should take this one forward. You should have ABC ready to execute.
Yeah. Especially when you're dealing with the C-suite, you have to be incredibly thoughtful, which is what you're alluding to. And I'm going to add to that, and something that we have a tendency of forgetting about, but it's take a moment to put yourself in their shoes. Just put yourself in their shoes and think about, first of all, the first thing they're going to think is, why am I here? What am I trying to get out of this? And just think through every aspect of what they might be thinking sitting in this meeting, and plan for that. You know, we did a monster deal, multi-million dollars, multi-year deal, and in the negotiation stage, our rep before the meeting, sat down and wrote down every potential objection they were going to face. Everyone. And he wrote out the answers to every single potential objection. Because he knew going into this negotiation, I'm going to get a lot of pushback. Because I know their buying style, I know how they operate, we've been working on this deal for a long time. I am going to go in and say, you know what, I'm guessing you're probably thinking this, and this. Maybe, maybe not, but let's just take them down. Because I've already done all the homework. And it was done in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially if you research what the objections might be, you weave that into your presentation so that you hit them head on. And a lot of this does go into just preparation around who are you meeting, what are their backgrounds, what do they study? If they study finance, maybe they're going to think about the product or the solution in a much more analytical way. So you're going to want to talk about ROI. Or if they come from an engineering background, they're going to dig into some more aspects of the technology. And so really entering in the conversation, understanding your audience, understanding and setting a clear agenda around, okay, so this is what I understand your business objectives to be. Is that the case? Here's how we think we can help that. And let's talk about what the process is going to look like in terms of best practices to be able to work together as partners in this process, because you're also setting an impression with them of what it's going to be like to work with your company in a partnership. And enterprise sales is very different than traditional sales, because it really is much more like business development. You're building a strategic partnership with someone, with their organization. You're selling a solution that's going to really impact their bottom line in a number of different ways. And so you have to set that impression and really do it in a solid way.
Make it easy to do business with you, to buy from you. Yeah, totally. You know what's interesting? The average sales rep spends 12% of their time planning. 12% of their time planning. That's account planning, territory planning, opportunity planning. When you're going in to sell to a C-suite, you better up that.
Yeah, because that's low.
That's incredibly low.
Yeah, the Fallon's point about also weaving objections into the conversation, super important. I think one mistake sales reps can often make is they think, okay, if they don't bring it up, I just hope they don't bring it up. And if they don't bring it up, maybe it's not really an objection. Anything that you think it's better to call it out and have it out there, because if you think it is, I can almost guarantee it's in somebody's mind. And you know what? Call it out. Don't have them be the ones. So I love this rep that had all of them and then says, okay, I can imagine this. Let's talk about those right now. don't be afraid to be bold and to be out there with what about your product and service works and what doesn't. And part of the reason for that is, again, we go back to this notion of trust and credibility. No one will believe you if you tell them everything works perfectly, we don't have any flaws, we've got a perfect company. You sound like a salesperson, and they're not going to believe you. You actually build credibility when you say, you know what, actually we're working on that, we don't have that right now. You build credibility when you just can demonstrate that you're going to be, again, talking about what this partnership's going to look like. It's around transparency and honesty, and again, as you sell more to the C-level, these selling qualities become more and more important.
That's great. So, Fallon, you started it to get to this next question. What's the difference between sales and enterprise sales?
Go ahead, please.
So, I mean, to piggyback off what I said before, it really is, so traditional sales can be a bit more transactional. Smaller deal sizes, higher volume, it's a repeatable process and you just keep doing the same thing, but monotonous. Enterprise sales, whole different ballgame. You have to, in terms of the planning side, you have to actually understand the lay of the land within an entire organization. Not just the organization, but that industry, that market, what's happening, what are the trends, what are the challenges for the organization, where are they struggling? If they're a public company, take a look at their financials, right? Like what's going on there? What are the analysts saying? What do the C-levels care about? And as it relates to your product or solution, how can you align a conversation around how your solution will actually solve their immediate objectives and really drive towards the initiatives that they care about now and in the next year or 2 years or 3 years in terms of a longer term partnership. And it's not just about entering in through the right points of entry. That's just starting the conversation. That's just scratching the surface of where the work begins. It's really, really understanding and identifying all of the different people, both the blockers, the gatekeepers, the detractors from the deal, people that you know that you're going to need to navigate around or turn them into champions. And sometimes there's entering up high and going direct to the C-levels, and sometimes there's starting a little bit lower and maybe talking to someone that's even perhaps in a different function to get intel and better understand that organization. That works. And so it's really just educating yourself, almost entering a company and understanding what's going on with that business better than they do, so that you can come in and really be able to speak and resonate with what they care about right now.
I would add to that, Mr. Dave Rudnitsky from Salesforce, probably one of the best enterprise sales leaders ever met, ever seen. One of the things he lives and dies by is get your face in the place. Get your face in the place. Spend time there. Now, if you're doing enterprise sales over the phone, it's a little bit more difficult, but you want to actually basically get a badge in that organization, because that's what it takes to do the big deals at an enterprise level. You have to understand their entire landscape, and everybody that you get to know there can help you understand the company and the culture and the direction and what is their buying behavior. There's so many people that are involved in these big deals. It doesn't just sit at the CEO. It's taken, in many cases, we all know, these things take somewhere from 9 to 12 months to get there. Guess what? Over the course of time, we all know, 6.8 buyers now are involved in the buying process, not just a single person. Well, at the enterprise level, the big deal level, there could be 20 or 30 people over the course of time.
I would say also about getting your face in the place, which is great. More and more in the C-level are also reluctant to have your face in the place. So when you do get your face in the place, you better make sure it's worth their time, and you've got to be prepared and succinct and make it valuable for them too, because they're more reluctant, and there's a lot more that's being done over the phone, even at the enterprise level, and that's okay. When they do polls, not just C-level execs, but among executives and also definitely on the technical side, they don't want your face in the place. So if you get, can you tell I like that expression? I've said it like 100 times. When you get your face in the place, again, you want to make sure that recognize that it's also a privilege that they're letting you in. I very rarely, unless I really want to meet with somebody, I'll do as much as I can over the phone because it just takes me longer when they come in. So recognize that that's also a privilege if you've gotten it to that point.
One more comment is just be patient. Enterprise sales, big B2B deals take a while. They just do. Be patient. We have a tendency to try and want to push and push and push at your schedule, but be thoughtful of what their schedule is. I mean, I was with our CMO this morning, and we've already made a decision we're going to go out and buy a piece of technology. It'll take us 3 or 4 months before we actually buy it. I mean, she's already said, we're buying this, and it'll still probably take us 3 or 4 months to actually make the decision. It just things take longer, bigger companies.
2 things I'd add too. Especially if you're using some sort of a data intelligence tool that'll let you know what other technologies that organization's using, you can actually talk to your colleagues at other companies that have sold to these organizations before, get intel, understand what that buying process was like, even if it's a product in a different function. It's a really strategic way to get that information so that you are well positioned to then enter the company in the right way. The second piece I would say is, in terms of your sales process in general, how can you demonstrate value immediately in that first meeting, that second meeting, the limited amount of time that you do have with the C-level? You better show them something that's valuable. Make them want to move to that next process even faster than you can imagine. And so, something that we do is we actually provide value through the sales process. We're like, listen, we'll map out, we'll show you your total addressable market that you don't know about today. And that makes them immediately want to go ahead and see it. And if that doesn't speak to a particular initiative or challenge or problem, pain point that they're having right now, and they voice to you in that meeting, then maybe be open to a different approach and say, okay, well, maybe what we can do is look at something slightly different. Let's look at this piece of analysis that you're interested in seeing. We'll show you what we're capable of.
No wonder why Google hired you at 19. Damn, she's smart.
Okay, so quick warning. After this next question, I'm going to come around and ask the audience for a couple of questions. Think specifically about how to ask your question as succinct as possible, and which one of the panelists you're going to put on the hot seat, because we'll get through more questions if you call on just one person. All right, so the last thing I want to ask you guys from me, and then we'll see what everybody else has. Don't worry, I've got some backup plans for you guys. Just in case.
People don't have questions.
Yeah. Oftentimes in major accounts, you've got to bring someone else in. You've got to bring your own CEO in, or you've got to bring a sales engineer with you. How do you manage the CEO and all the other people that you may need to bring in when you're dealing with major accounts?
I love this question.
So first thing you have to do is tell the CEO they're not allowed to negotiate at all, period. None. I kid you not. You guys laugh, but you have to tell your CEO, no offense, you are not allowed you're not allowed to negotiate. That there's going to be a lot of homework. Because CEOs get really excited.
You're doing the sales.
What's that?
You're doing the sales.
Well, I mean, unless that's what the meeting is for, but clearly that you've thought ahead of time about what the negotiation is going to be bidding. I can't tell you how many times Mark, Aaron have gone into a meeting and it's like the person that they're talking to is so excited, they're like, cool, let's just do a deal, let's just get a deal done right now. And literally, and so they start throwing around numbers, right? Yes, seriously, I saw Mark do this on a very, very large deal and cut the deal down by a significant amount. So the rep literally went from going club to not going to club because of the size of the deal changed. I mean, it's because he was doing math on the fly. So you have to prep your CEO. What is this meeting about? What are you allowed to do? What happens if we actually get that stage? What happens if they bring up pricing? What happens if they actually go down that road? What are we willing to do? Your CEO, by the way, is expecting you to control the meeting, not them. Far too often, we bring somebody, a leader into a meeting and it's like, here you go. And granted, I guarantee you would probably talk way more than the rep, which is fine. But guess what? I'm going to coach you on what I want, where I think we should go with this, and kind of some gotchas, and maybe some things to stay away from. So you guys just really be thoughtful about that. Don't let your CEO negotiate unless it's time.
That's a good one. Should have worked at Google on that.
So the way that we think about this at Node is we're really selling as a team.
And don't forget, she is the CEO.
Yeah.
So, okay, go ahead.
That's why I was pointing at her. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I will not see. So we really do approach certain conversations as a team sell. So we have customer success in the room. They're there to share the stories from customers that are going to resonate the most with the pain points that that prospect is having. We might bring in ops to help, bond with the other ops person that's also in the room to talk about the more tactical aspects of implementation and configuration. So understand the audience that's going to be in that room when you determine who from your organization you want to bring in. If there's a C-level, bring your C-level. If there's a VP, bring your VP. Prep them, own the conversation, drive the agenda, and make sure that you're considering all the nuances and all the people, all the needs that they have, and you're able to bring someone that can fulfill those needs, or you're prepared to be able to kind of approach those topics as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is your CEO is going to be uncomfortable if you haven't properly prepped them, or if they feel like it's going out of control and you can't control the meeting, and then they are likely to step in regardless of what plans you put in place. So make sure that you've done the appropriate prep, and if they feel comfortable that you can run it and manage it, they'll be fine. But where I've seen them step in is when they feel like this is going sideways and you don't have control of what's going on here. So just make sure that they're well prepped and that you stay, as Doug said, your job is to be in control of the meeting. You're running it. And so that means whoever you've brought in, that everybody knows what their assigned role and part is.
That's a great point.
The last piece I would say is if you can create a one-sheeter that gives a summary, ideally this is all on Salesforce, that gives a summary of what's going on, who are the people in the room, what's happened in the previous meetings, what are their pain points, challenges, how do we think, like what are the particular feature sets that we want to point out and demonstrate, and the objectives in the meeting. Prep your team, not just the CEO, everyone, so that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, that's a great point. You wouldn't believe how many folks will go into a meeting and bring a CEO or bring a leader with them and not start that prep meeting with the point of this meeting is, the next step in this deal is, right? So make sure you do that. All right, so for the next couple minutes, we're going to circulate, ask some questions, and call on some folks. Please, for those of you who are thinking, I don't have a question, so I'm bored right now, pull out your phone, go to Twitter, share something you learned tonight, do so with the hashtag SFSales, all right? You can also engage with Mark and his team at enterprise_sale if you want to engage with those folks or share pictures or whatnot. All right.
Way to keep it short, Mark. Way to keep it short. Enterprise_sales.
All right, go for it. Make sure you call on somebody.
Questions for Fallon.
Okay.
Hi.
Howdy. My name's Doug. I'm with Audit Associates. And I'm curious whether you believe that a great salesperson is born or made, and why?
Nature versus nurture, yeah. Honestly, I think both. I've met some incredible salespeople that are actually introverts. They studied engineering. You'd never think that they'd be amazing salespeople, but oh my God, are they amazing. And they've trained themselves, they've learned the craft, they've studied it, they've researched it, they're both good at the art and they're good at the science. They're using the tools that are also giving them a competitive edge. And then I've also met people that have no sales training whatsoever, and they just are naturally good at selling. And so, I've seen both. I don't know, what about you guys?
Either way, you gotta want to do it. You gotta want it.
Doug, you weren't called up.
Yeah. What's that?
You weren't called up.
I've got an opinion, like assholes.
Yeah, that's what you get for making fun of our Twitter account.
All right, well, this question is for Doug. My name is Stefan. I'm an SDR in Namely. Considering sometimes how hard it is to get the C-suite on the phone, when you finally do you allow them to dictate the process? If you already have a sales process that's in stone, like if you got them on the phone, are they allowed to just say, no, I'm going to see the demo on this call?
Yeah, so, good. So by the way, a little piece of advice, thanks for the question, I appreciate that. Be ready for somebody to pick up the phone. Just be ready. I can't tell you how many times, for shits and giggles, I'll just pick up the phone. Number I don't even know. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. I pick up the phone, and they're like, hey, hi. So, and you can just tell, and it's like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Oh, I'm such an asshole. But I use it as an opportunity for them to learn, right? You know, it's like, I'm being a nice guy. Anyway, so first of all, be ready for them to pick up the phone. And secondly, if you haven't prepared, then they will take over. In any meeting, whether it's a phone call or actually in a meeting, they're used to being in control and in charge. And if you haven't prepared, if you're not driving the conversation, listen, the reason for this, what we want to get out of it. Oh, by the way, set my expectation. This is going to take 5 minutes. And at the end of these 5 minutes, if we decide that we want to spend 5 more minutes, then we'll make that decision and stick to it. Because that's what they're used to from the people that work with them. Right? So be really, really clear. If you're not driving it, they will. And they're going to look for every reason to get off the phone.
Good point.
Hey, my name is Rashmi, and my question is to Bridget. I just want to know, most of the strategies recommended for C-suite or for enterprise sales, it's surrounded by land and expand kind of thinking. So if you happen to open a door with a C-level person, how much do you reveal of how far you expect an engagement to go, or do you start off with a small thought on where, in a very targeted way on where you expect a conversation to begin, or how soon and how far do you lay out the scope and expectation?
Yeah, great question. I think
Also
part
talk a
of
little
it-
bit about pilots versus long-term deals too.
Well, I think part of it goes back to what we talked about around who's the appropriate entry point in. And sometimes the reason to engage a C-level is not that you expect that they're going to do a POC with you, or they're not the ones that are going to do that, but it could be, I need who in your department is the appropriate person for me to talk to. So I think part of it really depends on where you are in the sales process also. If it's brand new, this is the first one, and no one in the organization has vetted it, it's going to be very brief, almost like an FYI, this is what I'm doing. Do I have essentially I want to keep you apprised. I wouldn't ask for permission. I want to keep you apprised of what's happening in the organization, and make sure that you are aware of me, can ask me any questions, any concerns. I will always be your point of contact as this is moving forward. So it depends a little bit where you are in the sales process when you engage with them. And then also, Doug mentioned this at the very beginning, how big the company is. Are we talking, an Oracle and you've just got Larry Ellison on the phone, or are we talking a smaller company and there's 50 people? So part of it also depends there too.
Add a little color because I have a microphone. By the way, you're going to meet with the C-suite. You want the whole deal. You don't want a land deal. I'm not talking to you, CEO, to do a small start deal. I'm talking to you to do an ELA. That's why we're having this conversation, because I believe in the value that we're going to deliver to your organization, and it's not just going to be from I don't want to have to go out and prove it, right? So go in there with the attitude. One of our top 3 reps for the last 4 years, she is remarkable at saying no. Like $200,000 deal for this department? Nope, not interested. She only does ELAs. And it's because she also understands the value, and this is for us in particular, but the value, our value is you just don't collaborate in a silo. Everyone in the organization needs to be collaborating together. That's her conversation point. She brings that into a CIO or CEO, and they're like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, I get it, totally. And she now has so much more credibility because the way in which she's approaching the conversation is she's aligned with that leader.
Yeah, and making sure that the homework is done and it's a really good fit, because when
For sure.
you make that call and you go and push for, like you said, and I 100% agree, you're not going for the land, you're going for the whole thing, you better have your ducks in a row and know that this is right on. You can say it confidently.
And even if they push back and go, okay, you need to start small and start with this department, cool. Okay, fine. If we agree to do that, the next conversation is how do we get the entire company I won't come back to do that unless we agree to that now, right? So let's set our expectations as to what we were going to accomplish in this little starter deal, but that starter deal is totally a precursor for doing a company-wide deal. That's the conversation that you should be having at the C-level.
Great, we got just time for 2 more real quick. Sorry. Call on somebody.
Hi, I'm Ethan Anderson, the CEO of My Time, a startup here in the city. So I have a question about hiring. So if you closed your eyes and thought back to who is the very best rep you've ever worked with that is killed it in the C-suite, what were they doing before you hired them, and how could you have known they would be so great before they started working?
Who's the question for?
All of you.
So I get 2 thoughts on that. One, they're all extremely hungry. Just you cannot train that. You just got to be super hungry. 2, wicked, technical, smart. Can talk to a CIO at any level, in any company. And then the third component to this was a lot of consultants, McKinsey consultants that understand how to go have a strategy conversation with the C-level.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You have to be analytical, you have to be strategic, you have to actually have had that experience of thinking in that way, whether it was as a consultant from a McKinsey, where you're actually helping organizations figure out how they should expand, what their strategy should be. Because when you're going in, it's a partnership. You're trying to do a consultative sale. And you have to go in and understand strategically how is your product and solution going to solve their challenges. And that requires a lot of prep, that requires a strong analytical mind, and also the ability and the kind of sort of persuasion and the way and to be able to walk into a room of C-levels and basically tell them you understand their business better than they do and why they need your product.
Yeah, it's being able to have that business conversation versus the product conversation.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is on the soft skills, it's got to be someone that is a great listener, really curious, and can have that conversation. But it has to be somebody that is a really good listener and also can read a room, because that's what you're going to be doing. You're selling. You're always reading the room and taking the temperature of the people in the room and what do I need to do to navigate to move forward.
It's that EQ versus IQ.
Yeah, high EQ.
That's a great question. Hiring question you can talk about forever. Quick show of hands again. Who's a manager with an open job rec right now? So if you're here and you're looking for a gig or you're looking to answer Ethan's question around what's the right profile type, ask these folks. All right, ask them what are you looking for, why are you looking for it. All right, last question.
Hi, my name is Brittany Lefko. I'm an SDR at Social Chorus, and this is for Bridget. I would imagine you've probably had EAs in your time, and I'm interested when you're selling to the C-suite, very often they have an EA that is pretty protective over their boss, understandably. Have you thought of your EAs as kind of a strategic partner for you, more somebody who just does your scheduling, manages your calendar? How much should we engage with them and try to pitch them and get them on board to kind of become an internal champion? How much should we try to go around them, reach directly to the C-level? I'm just kind of interested in your thoughts on that.
I would say absolutely do not go around them. The worst thing you can do is alienate that person. That is suicide. Because typically that person is going to be a really trusted, much more. We have tools that can calendar for us. So when somebody has an EA, that is typically a very strategic role. And that person has been appointed as a gatekeeper for a reason. So that would be the first person who I would get friendly with and be able to demonstrate value. And it goes back to some things we talked about earlier in leveraging a network. How can you make the EA look good when she brings something to his or her boss? So I would definitely use them. They can be the most fantastic allies, and I would treat them just as that C-level executive's right-hand person. It's a very different role than it was 20-some years ago.
And they know more about how to get shit done in the company.
Oh
than
yeah,
the
they
CEO
know.
or
They're
any
your
C-suite.
absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. While we do that, think about what's the most impactful thing you've read or seen lately that you want to share with folks, like books, etc. Okay, so raise your hand. Did you have fun? Yeah. Okay, another quick show of hands. Raise your hand if you have a LinkedIn account. Anybody ever want to go to LinkedIn headquarters? get out your phone, all right? I need you to mark the calendar for November 9th, 6 to 8 p.m. Oh, come on, do it. I know you have a phone, I saw it earlier. Okay, that's our next enterprise sales meetup, all right? It's gonna be at LinkedIn. They're hosting us, and so I really want to see everybody all there. They've got, I think, a little bit of bigger space, so I want to see you guys all bring a friend as well. Bring somebody from your team or somebody else. Okay, so last question for these guys. How good is this panel, huh? Couple ground rules. What's the last thing that you read that was impactful that you can share with folks? And you're not allowed to say your own column in Forbes. You should read Fallon's column. But seriously, what's the last thing you read that you think would be
really
great?
good, by the way. Yeah.
That's great. These guys are also all great LinkedIn follows too, because they're syndicating great content. So you do.
I'm really
Story
excited
color.
about this question.
Okay.
Can I go for a second?
Yep.
Never split the difference, how to negotiate like your life depends on it. This book is by Chris Voss, who is an FBI negotiator. Phenomenal sales tactics in there. I've used and applied his negotiation tactics to emails, cold emails to C-levels. And I've never gotten such high responses in my life. Never Split the Difference, How to Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss, V-O-S-S.
He might come speak with us too.
Give against, I love it.
Your turn's coming up, Cal.
Fallon will help you out. Totally. Yeah, that's awesome. There you go. Making it happen for real. It's a recent book that I just finished. I spent most of my time reading articles from this lovely lady. But a recent book that I just finished that I actually really appreciated for two reasons. It's Mark Roberge's book, The Sales Acceleration Formula. Love that guy. I love his book. Most importantly, though, 100% of his proceeds actually go to his nonprofit, or a nonprofit that he supports. Mad respect for that, and it's also not about him just sitting around and boasting. It's about just shit that he had to try, because this guy was an engineer from MIT and was given the sales function. He was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so let's figure it out. And he's got some great ideas. If you're a sales manager, get this book, read it. There's a bunch of stuff in there that's for you, even for a salesperson too.
A book I just finished is by Warren Berger called A More Beautiful Question. And it's about how to get ahead. The most innovative, successful, and creative people today are ones who know how to ask the right questions. And we're no longer in an economy where having the answer is the most important and valuable thing. It's actually having the right question. And I think as sales professionals, if you want to add value to the C-level execs and in these conversations, it's having the better question. It's a great book.
I'm going to add one more for all the storytellers out there. I know, but check out Made to Stick. It's just an awesome book. It'll help you to kind of understand how to actually tell your story. And everybody, by the way, you need to have your own story, your company story, and a customer story nailed.
Yes. Required. Okay, everybody have fun tonight? Okay, we wouldn't be here without Dallas. He's going to take us home with a couple more remarks, and then we're going to keep drinking, I think, right?
Sure. I know you are. So, thank you again. Thank you again. Yeah, right? No, I wanted to share just let's get a round of applause first. This is amazing.